Well, for more on the U.S. military ambitions in space, let's bring in Ian Christensen from Seattle. Ian is the Director of Private Sector Programs at Secure World Foundation, a group dedicated to secure, sustainable and peaceful uses of outer space. Welcome to the show.
Good evening.
So as we know, President Trump recently talked about creating this U.S. Space Force. How necessary is this right now for the U.S.?
Well, so I think the context in which the president has made this proposal is in context of an overall look the administration is taking at the way the U.S. space policy and space enterprise within government is organized, and that includes looking both at civil functions and at military functions. So they're trying to improve the efficiency of operations within government for space activities and the appropriateness of the oversight and structures that we employ. So that's the context in which this decision is being evaluated. And I think when talking about the Space Force, the central question is not one of new capabilities within the military, but it's one of what is the appropriate organizational structure for existing capabilities.
And as we look at that, we know that elements of a space defense already existed to some degree within the U.S. Air Force. So how would the U.S. going about starting an independent and co-equal space military branch? How would that work out?
Yeah, correct. As you mentioned, a number of existing capabilities exist in the Air Force. There are also some space capabilities and some uses of space within other branches of the military, including the Army and the Navy. So there's certainly a process that would have to be undertaken to do this. Begins with the order or the direction that the president has taken. There are studies ongoing within the Department of the Air Force to look at how this is done. It would also require action from the congressional side to create the administrative structure and the necessary frameworks for this to happen. There is, of course, analog for this in U.S. history. When the Air Force itself was stood up, it was originally an element of the Army Air Corps. So we've done this sort of thing in the past. There's certainly a process that will have to be undergone.
And what would you say are the biggest challenges in making this a reality economically, though?
So I think the primary questions are really ones of organization and description of mission and context. Many of the functions are not new functions, so the existing budgetary and economic sources exist for these functions. It's simply well, not simply, it's a rather complex, but it's a reorganization rather than new activity.
Now, unlike the government, we know that private enterprise has this ability to be more flexible in terms of the sorts of projects it takes on and the sort of risks that it takes at a faster pace. So do you see a potential space military as a purely government function or more so as a private enterprise or perhaps a partnership of the two?
It's very difficult for me to imagine a situation in which you would have private military functions in space. The history of most military domains is that it remains a government-focused domain in which government works with the private sector, in which the private sector provides solutions to government requirements. But it's in my viewpoint always going to be a military or a government-focused and government-driven activity.
So as we look at the front runners, break down for us who are the top space players and what aspects of space are they focusing on?
So at the government level, you obviously have the United States, which has a very advanced and complex civil space program, including functions such as science, exploration, weather, et cetera, and a large use of space for military purposes, including communications, navigation, weather again. And then you obviously have some of the other leading nations. You have China with a advanced set of military capabilities and a fairly advanced set of industrial capabilities as well that support both a civil program and the military functions. Russia, of course, is a historical space player in the civil program, currently the only government capable of launching humans to orbit, and they have a fairly advanced military capability as well. Then you have a number of emerging rising players, countries such as Japan, India, that are developing capabilities on their own, both on civil side and military side, and a number of countries in Europe act together through the European Space Agency for civil space purposes as well. So, and that's not even to begin to talk about industry capabilities.
But I do want to talk about China. We know that their One Belt, One Road initiative also includes plans for a Belt and Road space information corridor. So connect the dots for us in terms of how these goals complement each other.
Yeah, correct. So I think what you see within the use of space in the One Belt, One Road initiative is a recognition that space is a strategic complement to many government initiatives and many economic initiatives. So you see space as an enabling and supporting function in communications and Earth observation, in the flow of information. And so in the One Belt Road Initiative, as you see China seeking to develop links and build its importance in the region, space is used as a strategic tool to enhance that effort.
All right, thank you so much. Ian Christensen, Director of Private Sector Programs at Secure World Foundation.